Hi everyone, and welcome to this session of ELS. My name is Emma Bacon, and I have the joy and privilege of leading the children's work at Elim Coventry Church and also overseeing Limitless Kids nationally. And today we're going to be discussing the topic family-friendly churches. Now, every church will do family differently, so I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all mold. However, in this session, we're going to be looking at some specific areas of where we can maybe shift our perspectives and our thoughts around inclusion in our churches in this area. So we're going to be looking at some questions like, is the definition of a family church given by the amount of family services done, or whether children are in the service or in their own service? Is the responsibility of the child's discipleship wholly on the children's worker? And are we really open and accepting to everyone who walks through our church doors, through all generations, no matter what their need is, their background, or their race? And are we catering to all families culturally and circumstantially? As a children's worker watching, how can you partner with the wider church? And as a pastor watching, how can you play a part in helping to build this family culture? Now, I believe that we are one family through all generations. So how can we begin to work together as leaders in our planning of church so that is evident in the services that we hold, the activities that we provide, the teaching that we give, and the support that we offer, and the language that we use within our churches and our environments? So in this session, we're going to be joined by some amazing leaders who all have experience of working with children in some way, and also some in a pastoral leadership role. And today we are joined by Sam. Sam is the full-time children's pastor at Life Central Church in Halesowen. And he's also recently just joined the Limitless Kids team to represent the Midlands, which we're really excited about. We've got Anushka, who is the operations manager at E5 Church in Bristol, and she also leads the church alongside her husband, and she was previously the kids pastor at City Gates Church in Ilford. We've got Ruth, who is the pastor at Hope Church Hillingdon, and has previously again worked with and alongside children and youth. And finally, we have Shirley, who works in a special needs school and is also involved in the additional needs ministry at City Gates Church. So we're going to bring Shirley onto the screen right now. Hi, Shirley. How you doing?
Hi. Great, thanks.
Are you okay enjoying the sunshine today?
I am. It's beautiful weather. Beautiful spring day.
Good. So Shirley, as we said, like you work in a special needs school, and you also help to kind of oversee the ministry, the additional needs ministry at City Gates. So can you just kind of tell us from your experience, why is an additional needs ministry so important? And also, like, what does it mean for parents to have this provision when they enter the church? Like, why is it so important that a parent can walk in and have this facility available for them?
Right. So there are several reasons from what we've actually experienced, even at City Gates. I'd say, firstly, it gives parents a reason to come to church. And some parents will not come to church if their child is not welcomed. So if they have a child with special educational needs, I've heard it from, one or two parents that they would not be able to come to church if their child is not being catered for. Also, parents know that their child is being accepted in the church, and it makes the parents themselves feel accepted and loved. They also feel as though they are part of the church community as well. We also have Zoom sessions, obviously due to the pandemic, and that has been a very powerful insight, because we've realised that we've been empowering the parents to actually help and engage their own children. So that's been a very, very powerful, and the parents have really, they've really said that they've appreciated this so much. The parents even copy the activities that we do with their children. So we're actually training the parents during these Zoom sessions. And the provision, it means a lot to them, because the parents now have a group that they belong to, with families who have similar needs or who are in a similar situation. So it's created a good kind of bonding for our parents also. Also, it's a powerful network where the parents are sharing ideas. They can share ideas with each other and important information, that's useful to them, such as like the educational healthcare plans. Some of them might want support with that, and they can speak to another parent in the group. And that happens with our ministry also. And they, again, as I said, they're very empowered to actually help their own child. And I've seen parents develop in the way they engage and support their own child, particularly, again, through these Zoom sessions. There's also a prayer support. The ministry also has another element of this group where we have a prayer support network, and they pray once a month for the ministry. And that's been very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's great. I love what you said about having a sense of belonging, like that whole sense of them coming in and just having that sense of belonging. There's a story from a parent that actually comes to our church. She used to attend another church, and the reason why she moved over was because at the previous church, when she walked in, she wasn't accepted. She was judged. She was told that her child had to be quiet, that she was being naughty, that they couldn't do anything to support her needs. And I don't know about you, Shirley, but for me, I feel like if anywhere, the church should be the place where these parents can come in and have that sense of belonging and that sense of acceptance and home. And I think it's easy for kids workers who have a heart for all kids to get in there and want to love and support and understand these children. But it's a slightly different case for the wider congregation who have maybe never had any experience with children with additional needs. So what would you say, why is it important, would you say, for the whole church to have an awareness of the needs of our children, and also like them have like an awareness of just of what additional needs, like things like autism is, and how they can support them as a wider church? Why is that important?
That's really important, because Jesus himself, he actually said to the disciples, let the children come to me. And he didn't say what kind of children, he just said children. So that's a blanket statement for all types of children. And, the other thing is in Romans 10:13, it talks about whoever calls on the name of the Lord. Again, that whoever encompasses everyone. So we're talking about people, adults, young adults, grown-up adults, and children with special educational needs. So the church, they do need to have that kind of awareness. What we have done as a SEND team at City Gates, we've put on several presentations, and we've talked about autism. We've shown them examples. And so the church is beginning to develop some awareness. We've also put on training sessions, again, for people that are interested about special needs. So we've been teaching, the church about different types of special needs. So again, that's for people who've shown that interest to actually, come to those sessions. So we're still doing that. We're still putting on training, for that. But I think the presentation to the whole church, that was a great start. And that helped people to really see, oh, this is something I could get involved in. That's how the ministry started, through having a few of these presentations. We're even in the process of writing a book to help develop more awareness. And also that will be supportive to parents, so hopefully when that book's ready, we'll let you know. But that, again,
that'd be great.
We just thought that'd be really helpful.
There's some like really good things in there of how you can begin to make the church aware. And I love like what you said about the presentation to the church. We did a similar thing at Coventry, and we actually got one of the children who is autistic to come on and answer questions with his dad. So there's many different ways that you can bring this awareness. So that's like awesome. And you sounds like you're doing a great job, Shirley, at City Gates with you and the team. So well done for that. We're going to move on to Sam. And on a similar topic in terms of parenting. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
You are a parent yourself, aren't you?
I am.
You are a dad.
I am a dad to one, Zach, who's 2.5.
Who is
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous. He's a gorgeous little boy.
Most of the time.
You would say that as a parent. So Sam, like for you as a parent, from a parent's perspective, what for you is important when coming into church? Like, what do you really want for your child when you come to church? And on that note, have you kind of got any feedback from other parents that maybe you've been in communication to of what is important for them when trying to find a church?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this question a lot, and I think for me, like, I want Zach to grow up and love going to church. I want him to love church and to love God, and I think I want him to want to go. I think when I chat to other parents, I think the main thing is they want their kids to go. You know, I remember a story from many years ago when I was at another church doing some children's work, and there was one family that came up to me and said that their kids were so excited for church that they got ready and they were by the door waiting for their mom and dad. And I think, you know, as a parent, I think that probably is all of our dream, that our kids are up wanting to go to church and enjoy it. And I think for me, the key to that is fun. You know, if things aren't fun, people stop going. And for me, you know, the first thing I would do if you were looking or reviewing your Sunday school or your kids' work on a Sunday is I would go, is this fun? Because kids want to have fun, you know, and I'm sure God, he does. He wants us to have fun. And so I would say, take a look at it. Is it fun? Do the kids want to come? Because once the kids are there, then you can tell them about Jesus. If there's no kids there, then you're not going to be able to tell them about Jesus. But I think for me, it's, you know, I want my son and all the kids in our church to love to come to church and want to come and to grow in a relationship with Jesus. But I think they've got to be at church before they can hear the stories and get to know God even more, as well as at home. You know, being at home is just as important. And I think, you know, the pandemic has taught us that actually what goes on at home is way more important than a Sunday. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that they like had their coats ready and like, oh, let's go to church. And you're like, kids are so innocent, aren't they? And it's like, if there's something that drags them there, they'll drag the parents there as well. So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks, Sam, for that. So if we just bring Anushka on. So hi, Anushka.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks.
Good. So as I said before, Anushka was previously a children's pastor at City Gates. So Anushka, you've had lots of interaction with children in that area and kind of meeting and seeing their needs. What are the needs of our children when they enter the church? So and how do you think that the whole church can begin to take responsibility of these needs? Because I think sometimes it's seen that it's the children's workers' responsibility to meet all of the needs, but is there a bigger perspective on that, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I actually think that kids have the same needs as adults regarding church. I think it's just in a different order. So like most kids, they're really discerning, and, you know, over a period of time, they will naturally open up if they feel safe in their environment. But also having like a really good friendships, having great friendships in church, and the sense of feeling inclusive is a high priority for our children. So we need to give them space for friendships to naturally develop. And I think that means doing a lot of teamwork, group work, kids camps, discussions, play, and of course noise, because they're kids. All of that is really healthy in church. But I think just what Sam said about, you know, if the parents consistently hear their children saying that kids is boring, you know, over time, those parents will consider moving to another church, because those parents know they need to get their children plugged in and connected. So Sam is so right. Church has to be fun. And in order to make it fun, as kids workers, we can build really great memories for our children. That is so key. Children also need to be ministered to, Emma. So I guess we all know that. We'd probably put that at the top of our list. But they need an opportunity to hang out with Jesus. They need to hear what's on Jesus's heart. But they also need to be shown. Like, they need to be shown how to read the Bible, how to pray, how to hear God's voice. Because a lot of the time, they just haven't got a clue. And their friends are asking, and they haven't got a clue. Their friends have got questions. But they also need people to answer the why why. They have got whys. They have got questions. So for us to be around and available to answer those questions are key. And in order for that to happen, they just need to be heard. But you know what, Emma, you know, for I would say, especially leaders, to encourage those who do kids work. I don't think children's work is for everyone, but it's an important part of every single church. I just think for leaders in particular, it's so important that we honour our kids workers, that we pray for them, that we really elevate kids work in our church, and we encourage recruitment as well, because that's always an area where we always need more kids workers. That's an area we always need to develop. And you know, as a kids worker, sometimes the parents, they could be a complete nightmare, and sometimes they're more work than the kids. They drop off late, they pick up late, they don't tell the leaders when their children have had a bad week. So, you know, I just think, you know, leaders in our church, those who are serving in the kids ministry, they're the people we need to really encourage and lift up. Because on a Sunday, you look at all the areas in the church, your ushers, your tech desk, your prayer ministry team, all these different teams, they're great, but they're in the service. They get to hear the message on a Sunday. But those who serve on the kids team and the youth team, they have just come to serve Jesus, to serve those parents, and to serve the kids. So we need to elevate them.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I think like what you said about kids work not being for everyone, it's very true. Like kids work is not for everyone, but there are ways, if it's not for you, there are ways that you can support the kids and the kids worker by praying, by even like encouraging whoever the kids worker is, by chatting to the children as they come in. Like there are ways that you can support around volunteering. And like you said, also the recruitment system is such a key thing for kids workers. I think every children's workers watching this is like, yes, we need recruiters. And recruitment on that case, it doesn't just have to be like the same aged person. Like they need grandmas, they need younger people, like different generations getting involved as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Anushka. Thank you. We're going to bring Ruth on now. So, hi, Ruth.
Hi.
Are you okay? Are you doing all right?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Awesome. So on that note of like taking the whole church kind of taking responsibility of the needs of the children and the children's worker and kind of getting involved and stuck in. You yourself are the pastor at Hope Church Hillingdon. And you said to me, when I asked you about this topic, one of the things you said to me was that you actively choose to engage in kids and youth and adult discipleship. So what does this mean, and how do you do this as a pastor?
I think for me, there's things that you give your time to and your attention to. There's things that you value and you believe are significant. And for me, investing in children and young people, I just believe is just so valuable. And it's somewhere that I would love to place my energies. And what does this look like for me? Well, before COVID, there were those moments where instead of preaching on a Sunday morning, I'd get someone else to preach so that I could go in and be part of the children's work, be part of what they're doing, be available, be around, be there to listen and to be there to be engaged in what's happening. Currently, I lead both a weekly kids group on Zoom and a youth group on Zoom. And in this season where children and young people are feeling perhaps that they've missed out on so much, that they are struggling with life sometimes. And definitely some of our young people talk about how they're struggling with their mental health. It's so good to be there, to be able to listen, to be there to walk through and journey through this moment of living and life and faith, and also to then be able to engage them back into church and how it is that they can engage in church each week and be there to listen to the things that they've got to say. So yeah, those are some of the things that perhaps I'm doing to actively engage in each area of discipleship.
Yeah, and what would you say off the back of that are the benefits of that? Like as a leader in the church, being able to see what's happening in the kids and the youth as well, what would you say the benefits of that are for the whole church community and congregation?
I think for me, it just helps me to begin to take people on a journey together. So it means in main church that we journey together, and you're aware of the needs around about you, you're aware of the needs of the children and the young people, you're able to hear what it is that they're talking about, and those things that are really on their heart in this season. So I think those are just some of the big benefits for me. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that that whole journey together, like that. For me, when I've been like processing this whole what is a family church, like that togetherness has been such a key thing for me. In terms of over COVID, I know I've seen a few of your videos, and I think you're in your studio now. Am I right in saying you're in your studio? This is your COVID live stream studio. So over the period of COVID, you have been getting different ages, I guess, involved in things like worship and serving in different areas. So could you maybe like just share with us briefly the benefits you found in getting the young people and children involved in different areas of the churches? So not just you personally going and actively helping in kids, but like how they can actively help with adults, I guess you could say.
I think there's just been so much excitement definitely from the children, just so much excitement about being able to bring their contribution, whether it's bringing a prayer, a Bible reading, whether it's doing the welcome. We've had them signing up wanting to do the welcome for church. They just love that opportunity to be able to engage and be involved. And for our young people, just feeling that they could be part of that creative process of being able to say, actually, what will be in this service? What will it be like? What should we say? How will we be creative with the topic for today? And then being able to walk through that whole process with them and say, okay, let's begin to put a service together. You do this, you do that, and beginning to share that out, but allowing them to have their creativity to shine through. So I think one of the massive benefits, just the excitement that it's created, as children have wanted to do it and they've been part of doing it. And I think it helps them to feel connected and included as part of church. That as they look at what being part of church looks like, that they say, actually, church is for me. So it's not just for somebody who's older, but it's for me as well. And for all ages, it helps them to feel part of family, to growing their faith. Definitely as you begin to have those conversations and you find that there's been times that I've had a call from one of the kids and gone, this is what I want to share. Is this all right, what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Is it right what I'm thinking from the Bible? And those things are just so exciting to hear that process and that thought process that's going on in their head, as they begin to take ownership of their faith and they begin to grow in it as they are part of being part of church. And I've just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's great, Ruth. That's awesome. I definitely feel like that is a real key thing about family church is not just the adults going and serving the kids, but having the kids be a part of the whole church in different areas of serving.
So during COVID, one of the things that we've done is we've done a live service, which has been 40 minutes, and then we have a 5-minute break, and then we've been jumping straight onto Zoom. And one of the things that perhaps I've loved the most is when we've done Everybody Brings Something Sunday, which means from the youngest to the oldest, somebody brings something that they feel that God is saying to them, or a scripture that they feel that God is speaking to them about. And the joy for the children and for the young people, for each generation to be able to be part of sharing and seeing how they all tie together and how you see that God is speaking to people. And there's almost like a theme going through, and you can see that God is speaking to us through each age group, which is great.
Yeah, because there's no junior Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit can speak to all generations. So it's giving those opportunities and also tapping into every gift that the child may have in the different areas.
And then since we're going back, it's saying actually we're now back at doing church together and in person as well as online, and now just looking for new and creative ways that we can include both our children and young people. What is it that we're going to do as we move forward? And it's just keep being creative with that process.
And having that in your minds as well. It's amazing that you've got that in your minds. It's not how can we engage our adults? How can we engage the whole family? Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to invite everyone back on the screen now. So we're seeing everyone again. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey. So I'm going to throw out a question to all of you. So feel free to jump in if you feel like you want to answer this question. So what is your view on kids being in the Sunday service versus being out the whole time for their kids' church?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I've actually changed my opinion on this. I used to be really like for kids being in the service and totally against them being out the whole time. Whereas now I'm kind of like, I think it's whatever is best for the kids at your church. You see, at our church, we're now down to an hour service. And so to have the kids in for a bit, walk them across the other building that we do our kids ministry in, just wouldn't give us much time with the kids. So actually for me, the best thing for our kids in our setting is for them to be out the whole time. I think some people feel like this question is what decides whether you're a family church or not. I think there's so much more to it to that. And I think if kids are sat in a service and no one mentions that they're there or engages with them, then I would question what the point in them being in is. But for me, it's about what is best for the kids in your church and your setting.
Yeah, that's key, isn't it? What is best for the kids? And you're right, Sam. A lot of people do put an emphasis on this question as being what a family church is, and I completely agree with you. I don't necessarily agree with that. So, anyone else want to jump in with any answers for that?
Yes, and I'll just add. I think it's a mixture of the two. So there are times definitely where children need to be in their own space, and the youth, so that the biblical teaching can be broken down at their level. A lot of our young people are facing lots of challenges today. So perhaps in the youth session, there's issues that would need to be discussed with a biblical emphasis put on that to help these young people. And then for children, for the teaching to be broken down, for them to actually gain understanding, and using the various teaching strategies, which wouldn't really work in a main church service. And there are times throughout the year where I think children should be in the main service, so they get an idea of how services are organised. They get used to seeing different age groups within a church service. So I think it's good for both sides, really.
Yeah, that's great, Shirley. That's really good solid points. I think there's definitely benefits of definitely being in the service and having their own service. There's definitely benefits to both of them. Does anyone else want to add anything to that before we move on to another question?
I mean, I just wanted to say, I get to see the kids usually once a week on a Sunday, unless they attend the kids' small group as well. So as a team, we have an hour and a half with them each week. And for me, that's not really a lot of time. They have 30 hours of school each week. Many of them go to clubs, they're in teams, they're friendship groups, But as a kids pastor, I believe that having a personal relationship with Jesus is the most important thing in the world. So I can't justify reducing the amount of time that I spend with them. And I just think that, for anyone who, if you do have your kids in the main service, that's great. But I think it's worthwhile to list the benefits and to see if it outnumbers, the benefits of having the kids all together. And it is whatever works for you. But I think it's already been said, but the main thing is, are the kids being engaged in worship? Or is it more, what is driving you? Is it because people say it's always been that way? Is it that the kids' workers are always late? It's just really important that we just make sure that we're doing it because we know the reason why we're doing it, and it should be because the kids are engaged.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just that feeling that if the children are going to be part of the Sunday service, it's got to be intentional. And we do it intentionally. We make sure that it's carefully planned, that they're catered for, that they're part of a whole journey of a whole church together on that Sunday, and in not just be them sat there and twiddling their thumbs, if you like, during service. That it can be this healthy balance of both, but making sure that if we are going to have them in the service, there's a real intentional reason for that in there. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, some really, really great Really great points there. Thanks, guys, for that. That's awesome. We're going to go to another general group question in a minute. But before we do that, I'm just going to just share a little bit about our journey at Elim Coventry. So one of the things that I've been debating over this whole session of what family church is like, what is family church? Like, it's such a wide, there's so many answers. There's such a wide scale of what family church could be. Because like I said before, there is no mold that fits all. But for us at Elim Coventry, the way that I think that we do family church is through doing the same teaching through all ages. So whatever Pastor Duncan decides he's going to teach with the adults, we also echo that in our kids' work and our youth work. And I had a really beautiful moment the other week when I was setting up for kids' church, and that realization that when our kids, when our youth, when our adults, whatever age they are, walk into that building, they are going to walk out having been discipled in the same way, having the same teaching, and that has its benefits in many ways, because it not only allows that togetherness we've been talking about, that inclusion, that acceptance, that all of those things, but it also allows parents midweek to take that stuff and journey with their children throughout the week, knowing that they've learned the same scripture or the same topic as them. So that's just like one thing that we do at Elim Coventry to kind of help with that, that I guess family aspect of saying we're in this together, we're on this journey together, we're going to go with what God is saying together, and that no one kind of gets left behind in that sense. And another thing that I find really beneficial for me as a children's worker is on a Monday morning, we have a staff meeting. And in that staff meeting, it's not just to discuss what went well for the adults or what we're going to do next week for the adults. In that staff meeting, Duncan gives an opportunity for me as a kids worker, for Joe as the youth worker, to share how kids work went, to share what God was doing in our kids and what we maybe need to change or work on for next week. It's that whole mindset and perspective of we're not just planning church for adults, we're planning church for all generations and all ages together. And for me personally, as a children's worker, I have found that so beneficial to know not only I'm supported, but also that we're in it together. So I just kind of wanted to share those 2 points, because they've just been like things for me that have really helped me to understand and grasp this whole family context for us personally at Elim Coventry. So I'm just going to bring everyone back into the room again. So hey guys. On the back of all of that, we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about family services and all age services for a little bit. So what do you think that these really look like? How often do you think we should have them? Are they necessary? And do you think that a family service makes a family church? Now there's a question for you.
I'll go.
Okay.
No, go on, Anushka. Anushka, you go.
Okay.
Anushka.
I think all age services is extremely hard to do well. And by well, I mean that, half of the audience, let's be honest, half of the audience, when they hear it's like an all-age service, secretly they wish they hadn't come, or they're dreading, especially if they're sitting near the front, they're just dreading if someone drags them on stage and shoves a pie in their face, okay? So I would say it's all about purpose. What is the purpose of doing an all-age service? Because they are really hard to do. Is it about showcasing kids' church? And if it is, great, but I just don't think we need to drag it through the whole service. I think we should keep it short and to the point. The kids, give them their opportunity to come into the service, but let the kids minister to the adults or to main service, to the adult service. That's how it should be. I think it is fine to do an all-age service, but whoever is on stage, regardless of their age, I just think they need to be aware of their audience, and I think they need to be able to bring content to minister to all. That's what it's there for. Because if not, I just think a high percentage of people would just walk away wishing that they hadn't showed up. So it's got to be inclusive.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's true. And adding that to that, the other dimension would be then you've got the adults, young people, children with additional needs on top of that. So it is really difficult to plan an all service, all age and needs service. You know, adults love to see what children are doing. It's like at Christmas time at City Gates, you know, the children do show what they're doing, including the special needs children as well. And it's great for the adults. You know, people love to see that because they're not in the Sunday school or in the youth department to see what goes on the Sunday. So that's great. It does inform the rest of the church community of the great work that is happening.
Yeah, that point that you said about them coming in and sharing what they've been doing and kind of giving the context, I think that's awesome. Do you know one thing that does bug me a little bit, and I'm going to be really honest, is that sometimes when we have family services or all age services, it's like, let's get the kids on the stage and sing a nice little song. But half the kids don't want to. You get the year 5 and 6 and they're like, why are we here? And one thing I would say about that is it's great to get the kids on the stage, but get them on the stage in their giftings. Every child has a gifting and a calling. Right. So if a child likes preaching, get them on to read a scripture. If a child is into worship, get them to help with the worship. It doesn't have to be, let's just get all the kids on the stage to do something that looks cute. It's like, let's get them involved. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think we've all been to our share of cringy all age or family services. But one of the joys for me in church planting, leading a smaller church in this season, has just been the ability to do all age and family and do it well, and be able to do things like go, okay, we're going to have like different things all around the room and everybody gets involved and everybody gets engaged. And we have people coming and going, oh, I love the way that we do this. So I think if you do them well, it's good. And it can be a great thing. And I think it's like working out where your church is in this season. Previously, being a pastor of this church, I was part of a larger team at a large church. And we wouldn't have been able to do family and all age services the way that we do in a smaller church. So I think it's knowing your context, knowing your people, knowing how best to allow every member of the congregation to be part of what's happening, and no one to feel left out. So your equally oldest member and your youngest member should feel as included together and being able to actively take part in what's going on without excluding anyone. So
Yeah, I mean, pre-COVID, we did 3 all-age services a year. We called them all-in services, and it was my job to plan them, run them, do them. And I think, like, as a kids pastor, it's like really hard because it's like, right, can you do a service with the kids in and the young people and the adults and the old people? Oh, and everybody. And so, like, I find it really pressure. Like, I'm trying to preach, but I've got 7, 8-year-olds sat there. But then I've got, 60-year-old Bob, who's been a Christian his whole life, who wants some input as well. But for me, the pandemic has totally changed my thinking on all age services. I think, to answer your question, no, I don't think just because you do all age services or family service, that doesn't make you a family friendly church. But I think for me, what shifted is suddenly we couldn't do in the room stuff. And so our Sunday kids groups are called Kids Tribes. And so we launched something on YouTube called Kids Tribes Live, and it was aimed at preschool kids and primary school kids all together for families to watch together. And so we do interaction, we play games. There's always a vote at the end for the leader to get pied or eat something. And 9 out of 10 times it's me, but the last time we did one, it wasn't me, and I was so pleased. But we do like 3-minute activities where we put a countdown up and there's a question to talk as a family. Then there's a prayer time for them to pray as a family. And for me, it's like totally changed my thinking. Rather than trying to make a service for everybody and it just not ticking everybody's boxes, for me going forward, I see it as kids services where they bring their parents. So it's a family service at a different time to the normal church services. So we've been doing them at 4 o'clock on YouTube on a Sunday afternoon. And we managed to do one in person. last year, and it was just loads of families sitting in their bubbles, and we did the same thing that we were doing online, and it was amazing. And I think as a kids pastor, I was finally able to do those things that actually my senior pastor or other members of staff are like, you can't do that because there'll be adults in the room, or you can't do that because there'll be people that don't have kids in the room. And suddenly I'm in a room just full of kids and their parents, and I can do whatever I want. We can have fun and worship together. And I think, like, as a parent, I do want those opportunities to be in church with my son and worship as a family. But actually that can't happen every week. And so I think for me, like, COVID has totally changed that style and that thinking for me. And I think going forward, we will do separate kids tribes live that are for families. And it was a parent that said to me during the pandemic, you know, we were asking some parents for some ideas and things like this. And this parent said, I don't want you to provide something for me where my kid can come along. I want to go to something that's for my kid and encourage my kid in their faith. And that just blew me away. That when, do you know what, we need to be doing services that are for these kids, where the parents can come and encourage and model to their kids. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
I love that, Sam. Preach it.
Yeah, come on.
I love that. Something the kids can have that they can bring their parents to. Like, that's so good. Yeah, that's awesome, Sam. We can send the parents out to their groups. So switch it around, change the perspective. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Nushka on the screen now. Just obviously we've spoken about a lot of things, and as we said throughout this thing, it's really important to remember that every church is different. So what family looks like in one church will look different in another church. But if there are pastors or even children's workers that are watching this and they're thinking, oh man, I feel like we need to make some changes, and we need to kind of change our focus and our orientation, and do you have some like practical steps towards this? What would you say to them? What advice would you give in order to move forward in making their setting more family friendly?
Definitely. You know what, Emma, it all starts with leadership. And I would say having a great relationship with your senior leader and your youth pastor is key. I would say work with them. Those two guys, really important, whoever they are, he, she, you know, it's important to know that we're all on the same team and we've all got the same goal. But I would say as a kids worker, kids pastor, it's so important to learn to communicate your passions and the possible changes that you've got in mind for Kids Church. You know, you represent the kids on a leadership level, but it's so important that you don't get frustrated. You know, come with an action plan. So many times people will go to their senior leaders and say, we need to. And what they're really saying is, you do it. And I think we need to change the way that we communicate and how we think and how we need to be taking stuff off our senior leaders, not trying to give them more, because they have got so much already on their plate. We need to take stuff off their plate. And I think it's so much more healthier to be like, I've got a plan. This is the idea. This is the result. Here's the plan. And to talk things through with your senior leader, and not to be afraid to hear a no. You know, sometimes it's good to hear a no, but don't get frustrated, just talk it through. And obviously to pray as well. But can I just say, Emma, that kids ministry is the church's greatest evangelistic tool. It really is. And it's such a great way to connect families with church. And, you know, just quickly, for any churches where you feel like you're not connecting with families in your community, just 3 quick things, easy things that you can do in order to see families connect with your church. The first one is get in contact with your local family centre and just ask them. It may take a while to find out, you know, who's got the time to talk to you and to give you time. Try and set up a meeting and find out what's needed in your area and work with them. You don't always have to go solo. You can work with your family centre. They will have needs. A lot of the time they're looking for venues. They're looking for space. They're looking for places where they can engage safely with parents and children. So churches are perfect because they've got space. they've got time, they're set up for children, your children's spaces. Parents and toddler groups, they're so good because you don't need loads of volunteers. And I tell you, it's usually, let's be honest, it's usually mums with young babies. They're always looking for a space where they can connect and chat. And if you can, run a parent toddler group in your church, fantastic, go for it. Yeah. Also, think about adopting a school. Schools, especially non-Christian schools, a lot of the time they start to freak out when it's like Easter and Christmas, because they're thinking, I have to explain to these kids about these Christian events, which I know nothing about. And so if you could put yourself forward as a church and give them, we've got a fantastic church nearby, the area where I live, and every Easter they hand out to they've adopted the school that my daughter goes to, and they give every child like a really nice Easter egg with a beautiful scripture that has the Easter message about Jesus, and it goes into homes. And that is just something really simple that churches can do. And also stuff like holiday clubs are really good as well. But just really quickly, Emma, for those churches that are well established and you're just thinking, yeah, I've done all this, we're doing all this, I just want to say this, thinking evangelistic, yeah? If you're well established, you've got your kids team, you are flying, you are ticking all the boxes, go to your senior leader and ask them, where next? What is the area that you've got your eye on? Where would you love to plant a church? And then say, can we go and set up a kids ministry there? Your senior leader is not going to say no, especially if you've got an action plan. So they're the things that I would recommend.
Yeah, they're great. They're some really, really great, practical points there. And I think a lot of that all boils down to what you say, communication. It's communication on the children's worker side and communication on the leadership. Again, I just feel like everything's brought back to that partnership of working together. That's some really, really great points there. Thanks, Anushka. So we're coming to the end of our session. But before we end, I'm just going to ask Sam if he can just come on and maybe just share with us a short inspirational story of one of the experiences you've had with one of your families that will just kind of spur us on as we leave this call to want to make a difference, to make a change, and to just build more within our churches. So I
was trying to think of one particular story, but I think I want to just encourage people to think creatively. I think this COVID pandemic has forced us to think outside the box and be creative. And, some of the things that we've done is deliver prizes from things that we've done. We got to deliver a prize to a family who really struggling, son with severe additional needs, and actually me turning up in my kid's top with a prize that he'd won on one of our YouTube sessions, made his day. In fact, there was even, and this is God working in incredible ways and really weird ways, but we did a holiday club online, we did a colouring competition, and one of the girls won this Lego space set, and we delivered that. And about 5 days later, I got a message from her mom to say that she'd completed the Lego spaceship, and there was one piece spare, and it was the exact piece that she had lost from one of her other sets. And so she was absolutely blown away. One of the things that I've done that I just never expected to do is online assemblies. So last Easter, I recorded an Easter assembly, uploaded it to YouTube and Dropbox, and sent the link out to loads of schools. And there must have been about 2,000 children that ended up watching it. I had teachers from our church saying, can I have the link? Can I have the link? And I thought, that's something I would have thought of before COVID. But because of the pandemic, thinking outside the box, using what we got, some cameras, just doing a little, what does Easter mean to Christians? And then I did another one at Christmas because it went so well. Just what does Christmas mean to Christians? A little game, a little bit of a talk, an animation, and sent that to schools. And if I'm honest, that's something that we may continue to do past COVID and beyond. But I would really encourage you to think about what you've got, think about how you can be creative and think outside the box. You see, I don't think God wants us to go through all of this just to go back to the way we were doing our kids ministry. I think God wants us to really think about how we can be creative. You know, finally, last week on our kids Zoom call, I'm getting a bit emotional as I share this, you know, we had one of our kids tune in from her holiday. She was sat on her holiday home on small groups because she didn't want to miss it. There was another lad that was so desperate to join. He was in the car on his way home with his phone and his headphones in because he wanted to be on his small group. You know, God can move even through YouTube and through Zoom. God is on the move. So I would encourage you, think creatively, use what you've got and see what God can do.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Sam. That was great. Yes, so good. So good. Guys, you've all brought some amazing points to our session today, and I'm really thankful for you to come and join us. And as I say, we're coming to the end of our session. And like I said at the beginning, I said this many times, but I don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all mold for family church. A larger church will do family very differently to a smaller church, as we've discussed and we've found out here. But that doesn't mean that either do them better. And I think that's really important for us to remember today, is that just because we do family one way and another church does family another way, it does not mean that one way is better than the other. And we have an amazing opportunity as a movement to make our churches not just a place for adults to worship, but to make our churches a home and to make them a safe place for all generations to worship and encounter God. We can make our churches a place where people feel welcome, where children have role models and a sense of belonging, like we've spoken about. These words have just repeated themselves, where parents don't feel embarrassed because of a particular behavior of their child, where everyone's staring and they're too noisy, where every member of the congregation, no matter their age, plays a part in the discipleship of the children, whether that's through, like we said, serving on team, or attending focused prayer meetings like Anushka was saying, or simply just acknowledging the children and the young people in the church, and just offering support and love where possible. And where everyone who walks through our church feels accepted and at home. So I would love to challenge you guys who are watching today, children's workers, pastors, whoever you may be, to meet and figure out how you can together change your perspectives, your language used to help shape a culture of family in your setting, a culture of belonging, a culture of acceptance for all ages. This session is not to give an answer. This session is to give thoughts and ideas of how you can go away and mold this into your church. So thank you so much for joining us. And guys, thank you so much for coming in and bringing your perspectives. You've been amazing. So we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.